Retiree. Oh, no. Temptress. All right, good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Santa Barbara County Local Agency Formation Commission to order. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call, please?
Commissioner Aceves?
Here.
Commissioner Allen? Here. Commissioner Geyer?
Here.
Commissioner Hartman?
Here.
Commissioner Lavanino?
Here.
Commissioner Sierra?
Here.
Commissioner Stark?
Here.
Commissioner Waterfield?
Here.
Commissioner Welt?
Here.
And Commissioner Williams. Let the record reflect Commissioner Williams is absent, and Commissioner Allen will be voting as our regular special district member today.
Okay, great. If you could all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, United States of America, which is one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all people. Where are the minutes? All right, next, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for the May 2nd, 2019 regular meeting?
So moved. I'll second it.
All right, looks like we need a roll call.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner Geyer?
Yes.
Commissioner Waterfield? Aye. Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Welt?
Aye.
Chair Lavanino?
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1 with one abstention.
Okay, very good. It's time for us to administer the oath of office to alternate special district member Cynthia Allen. First off, Cynthia, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, since this is your first go-round here. Don't want to put you on the spot, but I did. So.
Thanks. I am the board president for the San Ynez River Water Conservation District and an employee for Vandenberg Village Community Services District, where I've worked for 25 years.
Awesome.
I have a PhD in public policy and administration.
That's going to be a problem.
And my constituent.
Right on. Very good. So who's administering the oath? Jacqueline. All right. So I think you probably want to go down there.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear
I solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge
and I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties upon which
the duties upon which
I'm about to enter.
I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, very good. That takes us to our public comment period. This is for time open for the public. Anybody who wishes to speak on any item that is not on today's agenda. Do we have any requests to speak?
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, I have no requests to speak on general public comment today.
Okay, very good. We're closing our general public comment period, moving to the consent calendar. Are there any items that board members wish to pull from the consent calendar? Not seeing any. Since there's only one, yeah. Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen? Commissioner Geyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield? Commissioner Hartman?
Aye.
Commissioner Welt?
Aye.
Chair Lavanino?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay, moves us to our changes of organization. Can you please read in item number 1, please?
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, change of organization item number 1 is to consider recommendations regarding Lafco file number 19-1 for the Tate annexation to the Santa Ynez Community Service District and consider to adopt a resolution.
Okay, Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Commission, Paul Hood, Lafco Executive Officer. And we have a pretty good turnout today, so
Yeah,
pretty
full house.
impressed. Lafco is catching on. We have
Let's hope not.
so I have a PowerPoint I'm going to present to you, and this is an annexation item that is the Tate annexation to the Santa Ynez Community Services District. And the background here is that the Board of Directors of the Santa Ynez CSD, by resolution dated January 16th, 2019, adopted the application to Lafco. The annexation area is comprised of about 1 acre, located at 850 Sienna Way in the Santa Ynez Valley, east of the city of Solvang. The entire area is within the sphere of influence of the Santa Ynez Community Services District, and the parcel is currently vacant, and the property owner wishes to construct a residence on the site and connect to the wastewater collection system. Or there could be, according to Environmental Health Services, an on-site wastewater system that could serve the residents as well. And here is the map. It's the wrong map. So we'll skip over that pretty quickly. That's for the next item. Land use is single-family residential. And it's within the, consistent with the Comprehensive Land Use Development Policy 5. There would be no change in land use planning or zoning as a result of the annexation. All surrounding uses are single-family residences on septic tanks. And although the parcel is not contiguous to the boundaries of the district, community services districts can annex non-contiguous parcels. Environmental determination, the Santa Ynez CSD adopted a categorical exemption class 19, annexation of existing facilities and lots for exempt facilities. Commission will also file, on behalf of the commission, I'll file a notice of exemption. There is a plan for services from the district. They indicate that they have sufficient capacity, wastewater capacity to serve the site, and it's already within the Santa Ynez Water Conservation Districts and it would require additional water meter to serve the site. District and landowner consent to waiving conducting authority proceedings. Property owners have also consented to the annexation. And the annexation, because of this, can proceed without notice and hearing. There's one additional comment. There is a petition included in your agenda packet. 5 adjoining neighbors have submitted a petition in opposition to the Tate annexation. And the petition states that they believe approval of the annexation will be inconsistent with Lafco policies of creating orderly boundaries and is not in the best interests of the community. And I'm sure they will want to explain that to the commission. The conclusion that I reached is it's a reasonable expansion of and logical expansion of the district, and the Santa Ynez CSD would allow annexation would allow sewer service to the site. The property could also be served by an on-site septic system. District and property owners consent to the annexation, and the district has adequate facilities to serve the site. So here are the basically the recommendations. They're included in your staff report, and if you decide to follow the staff recommendation, I would recommend that you approve the recommendations contained in the staff report and also on the screen for the PowerPoint. Happy to answer any questions that you might have, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission.
Mr. Chair, can I just make a quick
Yes, sir.
comment?
Mr. Dillon.
Bill Dillon with Lafco Legal Counsel. The appropriate map is Exhibit A to the staff report. So there was a glitch in the PowerPoint presentation, but the correct map is right behind the signature page on the staff report. Thank you.
That was your only comment on that? Okay, great. Okay, any questions of staff from the board? We also have public comment on this. Would you rather wait? Okay. Any other questions, Santa Maria? Raise your hand ever if you start. Okay, very good. We'll move to
Thank you.
We have 2 requests to speak. Madam Clerk?
Chair Levanino and members of the commission, we have 2 requests here in Santa Barbara. I believe we might have a request in Santa Maria. I haven't received it yet, but I'm sure we might momentarily. We're going to begin with Kevin Miller, to be followed by Terry Miller.
Good afternoon. I'm Kevin Miller of 846 Sienna Way, one of 5 neighbors adjoining the Tate parcel.
Kevin, so they can hear you in Santa Maria. Can you bring your microphone up, please? There you go. Thank you very much.
Well, maybe a little too far.
That's okay.
Thank you. I'm going to outline for you 4 reasons why I think the commission should deny the annexation as proposed. First, the parcel map. Exhibit D of the executive officer's report contains an incorrect parcel map. If you would pull up, Jacqueline, please, that map. The map included with the proposal shows 3 separate private easements between the Tate parcel and the district main along Highway 246, whereas there are actually 4. This map just shows a little detail, and I don't know if you can flip it to the right, but it shows that there's 2 easements where the annexation map actually shows 1. So I'll be glad to talk through that a little later. But for this reason alone, the map being incorrect, the commission should deny the proposal. Second, the easements. The Tate parcel is not contiguous to the existing district boundary or public right-of-way. It's only accessed via these 4 easements. The current easements provide for ingress, egress, and a single public utility, water service. Given the easement complications, the lack of liability protection for property owners, and lack of maintenance agreements for a private sewer line, this proposal should also be denied. Third, the petition. Each of the 5 property owners contiguous to the Tate parcel have signed a petition against the annexation, all 5. Lafco indicated that the only avenue available to voice our concerns would be to file a petition. We recently learned that it was not given full consideration by your director when reaching his decision because we are not considered affected parties. We contend that we are affected parties since any means of conveying waste from the Tate parcel must pass through one or more of our properties. We also noted that the actual petition, if you would go to the other form, the actual petition in Lafco's prescribed format, including the specific reasons for our opposition, is not included in the executive officer's report. If I can just pause.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wait till we get that up.
It freezes.
That was the first one you had up. I can move forward. That petition was not included in the executive officer's report. Since this commission has not had the opportunity to consider the full petition, we are concerned that neither county planning and zoning or environmental health and safety had that same opportunity. Regardless, based on the merits of this petition, this proposal should be denied. Fourth, the island. Creation of an island is one factor considered unfavorable to approval since it's against Lafco's policy of creating orderly boundaries. This sets a real bad precedent with respect to the 50 or more remaining parcels that have yet to be annexed within the sphere of influence. This could require Lafco to review separate annexation proposals from each parcel on an emergency basis as their septic systems ultimately fail. An island simply does not represent an orderly boundary, and for that reason, the proposal should be rejected. This is the petition. It was submitted. It was not included in your packet. It's on the appropriate form. It outlines 6 additional reasons that I won't go into, but you can certainly read through those. And if you want me to expound on them later, I will. But those reasons were not provided to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Hartman.
Could you discuss the easements? That went past me
Certainly.
a little bit more, please.
Yes, there are 4 separate easements involving between 2 and 5 parties to each easement.
Can you show it on the map, or do we have a
I can
map?
attempt to show it on the Tate map, if you have it from the annexation.
In my packet, I have the Los Alamos map. I don't have it.
Do you know what exhibit it is to the staff report that you're referring
Oh,
to?
I do. Exhibit D.
D. Thank you.
Yes, it's the incorrect parcel map. And it's incorrect because it shows the easements incorrectly, and in our view, the easements are what's necessary to actually make the connection to do the annexation.
I'm sorry, I was looking for it as well. Can you again state your concern?
Exhibit D.
Yeah, what's, I think Commissioner Hartman's asking what's wrong with it.
It shows three easements through which they must traverse to get from their property to Highway 246. There are, in fact, 4 separate easements, and we feel that's a bad map, that you can't process this with a bad parcel map. If you look at that map, you'll see their 1 acre lot. Oh, great, and I'll click up to here. Might take me 2 hands. So there's the 1 acre lot. This is one easement. It's a driveway, 20 foot wide. This is a second easement, not shown on there. It's a totally separate easement. Then there's a third easement, a part of that traffic circle belonging to our neighbor, and then a 4th easement that basically belongs to all 5 of the property owners, and that's for the access road. The other map that I provided shows in color the detail of these 2 easements, that there are in fact 2 easements there, not 1.
And so, if I may, your concern is that the map is incorrect and that the easements don't allow this, or?
Both of those, correct. Yep.
Can you tell us what easement is omitted? What's its purpose?
The easement that's omitted, there are 2 easements here. So this shows 1 easement. There's actually a 20-foot access driveway. And on our map, which we had prepared by North American Title, it shows the specific easements. That's the color map, that's the other document. It shows a line coming right down here. Sorry, I can't hold this thing steady.
And what's the purpose of this omitted easement? The easement that's not
You'd have
shown?
to ask the Tates or their surveyor. Our point is that the survey map is incorrect.
Okay.
And we know that Lafco has, in the past, sent things back to the district and had corrections made for incorrect maps.
Okay. Commissioner Sevitz?
Mr. Miller, I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
And I haven't seen from staff, and I'll get to staff later, where the line, or where the connection is going to be. Is it through that easement? I'll ask you to answer that later. This is unusual in that usually we get people that want to convert from septic to a hookup because their system has failed. And we have had a policy of trying to get those through because the systems are failing all through the valley, and it causes problems, obviously. So you said that there would be separate annexations required if other systems fail in this 50 parcel location. Is that correct?
That it sets a bad precedent and could require Lafco to review separate proposals.
Which we have done.
Yes.
But my question to you is, first of all, one, has there been other failures in that 50 properties? Have there been other failures there?
That I don't know.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Certainly.
And my question to staff when we get a chance is, where is the hookup? I think we're done with Mr. Miller, I think.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just by way of clarification, the map that is attached in the staff report is the district's map attached to the resolution of application that was approved in January. The maps that we have are legally required to be reviewed by the county surveyor's office, and that is the map and legal description that will be used if this annexation is approved to file with the certificate of completion and to file with the county recorder's office and the State Board of Equalization. I know Mr. Tate is in the audience, and he can speak as the property owner as to where the easements would be used, but our map and legal descriptions don't include easements. It's basically a meets and bounds survey that shows the exterior boundaries of the annexation with a point of beginning that is a closure as well as a map that is attached, and that was certified by the county surveyor's office. It is the map that we will use based on this. And I also included the petition that you have in your agenda packet as Exhibit E, and the signatures are included, and also the narrative that is included with the petition. It does not include the, for some reason, it didn't get copied as far as the first page of it, but there is a signature by the property owners that is attached as Exhibit E.
Okay, very good. Next public speaker, Madam Clerk.
And our final speaker on this item is Terry Miller.
Hi, I'm Terry Miller, also of 846 Sienna Way. Any one of the factors Kevin mentioned are reasons enough to reject the proposal. However, if the commission is considering approval still, there are two reasons you cannot make this decision today and should defer to a future meeting. The first, as Kevin stated, is that you don't have all the information. The complete petition was not provided in the executive officer's report. Second, a PowerPoint was added to the agenda yesterday, which may not comply with the Brown Act notification requirements. That PowerPoint represents new information that we haven't yet had an opportunity to consider. For example, it concludes that the sewer district has the capacity to serve a single-family residence and an ADU. The Tate's application to the district was for a single-family dwelling and makes no reference to an ADU. On a side note, we have spoken with Karen Jones, District Board President, who is sympathetic to our concerns after learning more about this project. In closing, if the Commission were to take the unprecedented position of approving this proposal, it would be doing so based upon an incorrect map, using inadequate easements, against the objection of all 5 surrounding property owners, and in direct contrast to Lafco's mission of serving the residents and encouraging orderly boundaries based on local conditions and circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have a question. I'm struggling with this because I'm trying to figure out, you know, as far as the issues you talked about administrative and those types of things that can be remedied at a later meeting, I'm trying to figure out the surrounding landowners. I mean, they'd be able, this property would be able to come in and put a septic tank in right now. Correct.
That's my understanding.
In Jannon Acres, which is a special project area, which is a problems, special problems area. I don't know why we would want to, so I'm trying to figure out what the end game for the neighbors is. Do you not want a house there? Because eventually there's going to be a house there with a septic tank, or we connect them to the sewer. So I'm trying to figure out what the problem is.
No, we're not, it's not a personal.
Well, I'm sure it's not personal. I don't know what the win is, what the gain, how we fix it.
Well, they are proposing to come through easements without any protection for us, any liability protection for us, any maintenance agreement for future leaks or repairs.
Okay. So we need to get the easement resolved.
That is one of the points in our petition.
Right.
That you haven't had a chance to.
No, and I understand what you're saying. I'm generally, though, when we have people that are opposed to something, I'm trying to figure out what their end game is so I can help get to how to fix that problem. But the alternative for these folks seems drastically worse than what they're proposing. But I understand what you're saying about the easement and how we need to get that cleared up. And so thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
And
all
that was our
right,
final
so that's
speaker.
the end of public comment? Okay, so, Mr. Guy, you don't have a light on. Do you want it on?
Yeah, I'd like to ask staff, have
There
you
you go.
reviewed the easements? I mean, is there some restriction with the easement? What is the easements for?
Well, I think the property owner hasn't filed a comment slip, so I'm sure that if he wanted to, he could explain that.
Is Mr. Tate in the house? Oh, yes, okay, come on up.
I guess I wasn't aware that we needed to file anything, sorry about that. So,
So bring the mic up for me, please.
okay. I do have some maps that I think would be good to distribute to each one of you. And it shows where the annexation would actually occur, where the tap would be into the main sewer line on 246, and it does show our property. And I have a single copy from, ironically, American Title, and evidently we shared the same title company. Pardon me? Yeah, big copies? Okay, yes, thank you. And then you may want to also distribute, I don't have enough to distribute to everyone on this one, but you may want to take this as well for distribution. And I think it'd be worthwhile to allow each one of you to take a look at this title report, a copy of it.
You know, I just had a brief conversation with county council, with our council here, and if you could weigh in, Mr. Dillon, I think it would be very helpful.
I think these issues are all fair questions to raise, and it's just a little difficult to sort through questions on easements on the fly like this, and especially when we're getting new maps that might be very helpful, but it's hard to, in this context, to quickly sort through those. So I think we wouldn't mind maybe continuing this item and bringing it back. I would note that generally it's incumbent upon the landowner to have access to the street for his sewer line, his or her sewer line. And so if they have issues with the easements and the neighbors, Lafco won't override that. We cannot deprive the neighboring landowners of their rights in terms of the access issue, although typically sewer access somewhere is covered in these easements. But I wouldn't propose that Lafco get involved in that. If they need to negotiate that with their neighbors, that's a situation they would be in. If they got the right, they don't have to do anything other than work with the district and provide the hookup. So, but in any event, we got different maps and suggestion that the petition's incomplete. It's not a petition, by the way. There is no petition process in this proceeding. It's basically a public comment letter. And I don't know what got left off. I did read the earlier petition in its complete form, and I'm not sure if I saw that online or in the packet, but it's all issues that, to get the kind of detailed answers, I think the commission wants to feel comfortable. We'd like to bring it back, but I'm just curious if the landowner has
May
concerns.
I respond to your
Yes.
comments, Mr. Dillon? I'll digress back.
Pardon me?
I didn't want to go ahead and get into this, but I realize that LAFCO's position is to define the boundaries, what areas can be annexed. I realize that in the May 2nd meeting, we actually had a copy of the draft indicating that there are concerns about failing systems. We know about Jannon Acres. We realize that we don't want to contribute to groundwater contamination by effluent waste. We also realize that there are plumes that are concerning the entire area here that actually migrate all the way down to the ocean. We don't want to be party to that. We'd like to go ahead and not do septic. We'd like to tie into sewer because we think it's the right thing to do. The Millers have stated on numerous occasions they don't want a house built there, and we have that. We got the message, believe it. But we have First American Title's report right here in hand, and I'd like you all just to review it.
Well, Mr. Tate, we don't.
Well,
I appreciate.
May I finish, though?
Not really. If you want to just hold on. So here's the deal. We're a deliberative body that has to be able to review material ahead of the meeting. So a lot of this stuff's very complicated. There's maps involved. Here's my suggestion. For you to get a fair hearing and for them to have a fair hearing, we all need to have this information ahead of time. So my suggestion is that we move this. We'll move it to August 1st. You have time to meet with Mr. Hood and our clerk, make sure that all the information that's relevant is before us so that we have ample time and it's posted everywhere so that the public has ample time, because you're going to provide us now with a report that either they haven't seen or they're going to say they haven't seen it. It's going to go back and forth, and we're not going to get anywhere today.
Well, Steve, I think the thing is, though, that you do have this information already. Your county surveyor already reviewed this information. There are only 2 easements. There's parcel 2 and parcel 3. That's it. And it so states that in your reports. Mr. Hood has reviewed it. And he's, basically from what I'm hearing, he's in agreement that that report is correct. We've also spoken with Jeff and I can't remember the other person's name at the Wendy, yes. And both of them have indicated that that there were questions about the ability that we had to go ahead and utilize the easements that are in place, and as it's written, they're for public utility, ingress, egress, public utilities, and incidental purposes on both 2 and 3. There are no other easements. There's only 2 easements, and that was defined by M&S, by Mark Reinhardt in his survey that you all reviewed. So all I am saying is, rather than go ahead and take this, really what amounts to more than a personal attack, as having valid content from the Millers, I think that we should look at what's been reviewed, what's been presented by the the county surveyor. Everything, we have gone ad nauseum to make sure that everything is correct. I don't have any reason to want to be in battle with a neighbor. And at the end of the day, we're talking about trying to go ahead and keep our water, our groundwater that we're all dependent upon for irrigation and consumption, clean. We don't want to go ahead and contribute to this by putting effluent waste into the system.
Okay, you're way over time that we really never asked for in the first place, so.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, this is in my supervisorial district. I didn't have an opportunity to talk to people about this, so I don't have any insight. I did have a call from Chairman Jones of the San Ynez Community Service District. She did ask if I could pursue a continuance so that we can figure the easement issue out. So I would like to do that if at all possible. I feel like I don't have the answers I'd like to have before making a decision.
Mr.
So
Chair,
I'd like to move to continue.
Commissioner Waterfield, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just a point of order. We're not proposing to have a hearing on August 1st because of the short turnaround from today's date. So it'd be September 5 if you continue this.
Excuse me? Did you say September 5th? We're already building on the property. We intend to have our house built well before then. So by doing so, this seems like an irresponsible move to go ahead and want to contribute, see us contribute to effluent waste that's being allowed to.
You were building on a property when you didn't have permission from Lafco to connect to the sewer. No, you don't have to, but.
We don't have to.
I know, but at some point, you're going to have to connect to the sewer, correct?
We would like to connect to the sewer.
I would love to too, but I don't feel like I have the information in front of me to be able to make an intelligent choice. So if you're going to force me to make a decision today, it's not going to end up well. So my suggestion is I hate doing this, but you put us in a really difficult position if you want to take the
Is there a
continuance.
reason that we can't go to the August meeting as opposed to?
There is no
the-
August meeting.
Oh,
That's
there
the
isn't?
problem.
Oh, I see. Okay.
We would-
My question,
August 1st is 3 weeks away. Oh, hold on. Okay.
Mr. Chair, my
Commissioner Watt.
question is to Mr. Hood. You thought this project was a good project, and from what I'm hearing, it was something that would probably have been approved by us, providing all the information you had given us was going to be enough information for us to make a good decision in regards to this. We do have a couple of oppositions, which kind of threw a false kilter. So where did this go array in regards to your mind thought and in discussing with the client in front of us?
Well, Commissioner Waterfield, the issue is when I contacted Environmental Health, talked to the Director of Environmental Health, and also reviewed the potential sign-offs, that they need to sign off on either a septic tank or a connection to the sewer from the San Ynez CSD. And I'm not sure how the Tates were able to begin construction without having that settled. If they need a building permit, for one thing, from the County Department of Planning and Development. So, my logic basically was they could build regardless of if they put an advanced septic system or connect to the sewer, but it requires that Environmental Health sign off on that. I think it's a little premature to think that they can actually build and be done with construction before September 5th. I'm not sure how that happens, but the district is, remember, the district is the applicant, the San Ynez CSD. They filed a resolution of application. Karen Jones is the chairman. She signed the resolution as chair. And so, my logic is that if they need to develop to build a house that environmental health director said that his preference would be to connect to the sewer because they could do an advanced septic system, but regardless, they can still get a building permit. So my logic was that if we approve the annexation, the commission approves the annexation to the sewer district, that would relieve any possible contamination of the groundwater and is more logical than adding to an existing problem where septic tanks are failing. We have one later in the application or the agenda.
And so then what I'm hearing from the dais is that we're not comfortable doing that because of the easements that have been brought to us today that were not brought to us in our report.
And again, the map and legal description, this one on the screen was attached to the district's application.
I have it right in front, yeah, it's in my packet.
Yeah, and it's attached to the resolution. The application, the map that we have is certified by the county surveyor's office, and we're not required to look at easements as Lafco, and the maps are not, do not show the easements. It would be helpful if the district were here and could explain that to us, but since they're not, maybe if we do continue it, we can request that they appear at the next Lafco meeting, which would be on September 5th.
And again, there's no way that I can just show you the description right now to show that we do actually have an easement. I'm sorry,
I want
Steve,
you to
I'm not
build the
trying to go
house,
ahead.
and I don't want you to have a septic sewer.
Yeah.
I don't want you to have a
We're
septic
with
tank.
you.
I want you to connect to the sewer.
Yes.
Absolutely. But
Yes.
I don't want to end up in litigation either where this thing, you get shut down because they didn't feel like they got a fair hearing today, and that happens all the time.
Well, and ironically, I've offered this to the Millers numerous times. They refuse to even look at it. And they won't show me their report either. They just make reference to a report that's bogus.
Okay.
And then one last
No.
point, though, is that there is a property right on the corner of Sienna Way and 246 that already has been annexed to the sewer.
All right. So with that, we'll have you return to your seat. We'll discuss it here on the dais, and if we need any more comment, we'll ask. So we're going to go Commissioner Aceves, Williams, and Guyer.
Okay. Mr. Hood, I just want to clarify one thing, and then I want to take this back to the beginning. We started talking about easements, but we don't worry about easements. It's not a Lafco decision. So to come back with further maps is not going to change what we have in front of us as far as what our responsibility is to make, how we make our decision based on the application. Now, we have a resolution from the district that's voted on asking for us to allow for the annexation. I'm a little troubled that the chairman would call and say, please delay it, unless it was the commission that said, please delay it. And I don't see any reason why we couldn't move forward with this today. I don't see any information that we still need to make the decision. I think you have everything here. It's up to the district now to proceed with the annexation of the property with the sewer line, and there's a whole process for going through that. I don't know what else is left for us, unless you can tell me what else is left to us to decide on, other than debating what easement they're going to use. And what I heard earlier is one of the easements already has a utility easement with water. But that's not for us. That's for the district to then work with the property owner to install the line. And personally, I hope it's a line that the other residents will be able to use in the future. It's a problem area. It's been discussed. To delay it another 2 months, I think, is highly unusual in that we don't get the opportunities too many times to allow a resident in the property, be it this being a new one, but a resident in the property area to convert from septic to a sewer line, especially in the problem area. So I would hope we move forward, and it's up to the district to move it forward. We don't have any other game in it other than allowing them to move forward with the annexation.
Commissioner Williams?
Well, I do think it's unfortunate that that it would be a 7-week gap, but I also see that both the applicant and the neighbors have brought us information that is not in our packet. Well, if you agree there's a petition, it's neighbors, right? And the district has asked for a continuance, and the elected official that represents the area, Ms. Hartman, has asked for continuance. I don't think it's, I mean, to me, that says something. You know, my view, for even though I'm a non-voting member today, would be that a continuance would be a basic protocol we would give in the case where there's that much in the air.
Commissioner Guyer.
Well, first, I recognize that we don't have districts on Lafco, but my question is there anything new that has been presented after you deemed, or you came up with your recommendation and this application was deemed complete?
There is nothing additional, and I was aware of the petition by the surrounding property owners, and they, as a point of information, also could utilize the district sewer, which is, you know, fairly close to all 5 of these properties, if they have an issue with a failing septic tank. They were not willing to do that. You know, they could be included in this application. It's in the sphere of influence of the district, and you know, my direction is, as far as the commission, advising the commission and making recommendations, is, first of all, it needs to be in the sphere of influence. The property owner needs to consent. The annexing agency needs to consent. And all of that was submitted at the time I made the recommendation. And it's something that I do all the time, you know, based on those factors. It's not anything unusual. The difference is that the surrounding adjoining neighbors are opposed to the annexation for whatever reason. There's probably some things that we have not heard today, but they could also utilize the district's sewer if they need to. And the whole Janet Acres area is a special problems area that should be included in the district boundary and provided services by the district.
Okay, we're going to go to.
I'd also like to address the issue of creating an island. I personally don't see that we're creating an island. It's within the annexation area of the district, so we're okay.
Commissioner Aceves and Commissioner Waterfield.
Okay, I'm convinced that we have sufficient information before us to approve the annexation. I don't see no other information that needs to come forward is going to change what we need to deliberate on. So I'd make a motion that we approve the annexation of the property.
I'll second it.
Any other comments on the motion?
I had a question. Does the Santa Ynez CSD have a responsibility vis-a-vis the easements?
Usually if it's on private property, my experience is mostly with the city of Santa Barbara. When you get onto your property boundary, you're responsible for everything. When you get to the city easement, they run the show out there. But so I suspect the district does not get into the easement issues. They require the landowner to provide access, and usually there is access one way or another. But if there isn't, that'd be a private dispute.
Okay, well, I will oppose the motion just because I think everyone up here believes in connecting to the sewer system and that this is a special problems area, but I feel like I don't quite know enough.
So, Mr. Chair, just a point of order. Your clerk expertly noted that I think we had a motion on the floor with no second. Oh, thank you for admitting to that. So, okay, we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Aceves with a second by Mr. Guy.
Okay. Did you have any other comments? Are you ready?
No, I'm glad I asked the question because you made it clear, and with not knowing, understanding that we don't deal in easements, we have everything we need here in front of us to make a decision today, so.
Okay. Looks like they'll raise their hand if they're got questions. Otherwise, we'll go ahead. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Let's take a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Aceves?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman?
No.
Commissioner Welt?
No.
Chair Lavanino?
Abstain.
Yeah, motion passes. 4 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 abstention.
Okay. All right. That's the most action we've had at Lafco in 9 years. Right on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm the new kid. I was like, I thought these meetings were sleepy. This is not so much.
You ain't seen nothing yet. All right.
More like a long dormant volcano.
Yes. Okay. We put all 3 items on one agenda. This is awesome. All right.
We didn't have a meeting last month, so
Yeah, moving to number 2.
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, change of organization, item number 2 is to consider recommendations regarding LAFCO file number 18-01 for the formation of the San Antonio Basin Water District.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Paul Hood and members of the commission, LAFCO Executive Officer. It seems like this application has been in the office for a long time, and some of it had to do with the extent of the boundaries. It's a very large area. Landowners, by petition, 63.35% of the landowners owning over 50% of the land area filed the application. And San Antonio Creek groundwater basin is adjacent to San Ynez, and your commission approved a Cuyama Basin Water District in 2016. Extends up to Vandenberg Air Force Base. The Santa Barbara County, Vandenberg Air Force Base and Geologic Survey have been working to better understand the groundwater resources and demands in this basin. And we did get the right map this time, so it was included in 2 staff reports. And this is the area. It's the Los Alamos CSD is surrounded by the area and will not be part of the district. It's about 87,041 acres, very large district. And I'll kind of go through some of this because your commission, I think, is pretty aware of what the Sigma requirements are, and that San Antonio Creek Basin has a medium level of severity. Cuyama Basin had a more severe level of severity. And this goes back to the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act of 2014, known as Sigma. And it requires that San Antonio Basin include certain groundwater management actions in their reason for existing or being proposed. Stakeholders plan for the future use and will help assess the quality and quantity of water and supply in the area. And again, I'll go through this, but after formation, the district would be financed, just like Cuyama Basin, by the assessment district, the Prop 218 ballot and election proceedings that would be able to be financed. And I talked to one of the proponents, and this could be around $1 million contribution to work on the groundwater plan. The Groundwater Sustainability Agency, GSA, was formed by the adoption of a joint powers agreement between Cachuma Resource Conservation District and Los Alamos RCD. And the JPA specifies that if a water district is formed, it would automatically take the place of the Cachuma RCD. So the formation process, for the Commission's information, is that the application is initiated by a petition. It needs to be, as I mentioned, in over 50% of the land area, and the majority of land that's capable of using water beneficially for irrigation, domestic, industrial, municipal purposes, and that's out of the state statute. We have a Lafco hearing, which we are holding today, and the Commission can either approve, deny, or make changes to the application. And if approved, the Commission will also adopt terms and conditions of formation and establish the sphere of influence of the new district. This would be followed by a protest hearing, but in the meantime, there's a 30-day request for reconsideration, so I would not hold the protest hearing, and your staff holds the protest hearing, where without majority protest of the landowners, LAFCO would do one of the following: establish and describing the district boundaries, excluding any land from the district that would need to be excluded, naming the proposed district. And since the majority, 63% of the landowners signed the petition, it's unlikely that over 50% of the landowners would protest this, so it would go to an election. And the Board of Supervisors is directed by Lafco. It's kind of weird, but Lafco directs the board to call and give notice of the election, and only the holders of land can vote. And each voter shall have 1 vote per acre, or fraction thereof. And if majority of the votes cast is determined, the district will be formed. Governing body would be elected, 5-member elected board of directors, each of which needs to be landowners. And that can be increased in the future to 7 or 9, but most of these districts have 5 directors, and they're known as California water districts. So there are some options to this, but California Water District has been used in various counties. It was used here in Santa Barbara County. And the district, my conclusion is that the district has the ability to administer, develop, and construct any projects that would be necessary for groundwater management. And the new district would provide a level of control, would be groundwater sustainability agency, and would be developed as part of a groundwater sustainability plan. I've cut through a lot of information that's included in the staff report, but you have basically 3 options that I always give you the chance to make a decision on this. Option 1 is to approve. Option 2 is to continue, and there's 2 option 2s there, but option 3 is to deny the proposal. My recommendation is that you approve the district formation and adopt a resolution that will take the following actions. And I'll include these, and they're in the staff report and in the resolution that you have. But there's also a last condition that I'm going to ask our legal counsel to go over. So we have conditions A through E.
Thank you, Mr. Hood, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. In discussions we've had in the last couple of days with the counsel for the petitioner, we realized that one of the lots, or at least one of the lots, if not more, for inclusion in this district, which is meant to track the San Antonio groundwater basin. One of those lots actually has a portion of the San Ynez groundwater basin in it. And so the petitioners worked for some time on this issue, both with the neighboring district, the San Ynez CSD, and, or excuse me, I think it's River Conservation District, and also the Department of Water Resources on a remedy for this. And essentially, their proposed remedy, and this was reflected in their petition, but we didn't appreciate how important this was at the time. But their remedy is that while part of this parcel will be included in the water district and then end up in the San Antonio GSA, the jurisdiction of this newly created San Antonio Water District would be limited to management of the San Antonio groundwater basin only. And even though part of the San Ynez groundwater basin will be on this parcel, they will not have any jurisdiction pursuant to the state to try to manage that small portion that's like over 99% outside their jurisdiction. So reflecting what they put in the petition, and we distributed this by email yesterday, so if you had a chance to review that, you've seen this, but we've added condition G to the resolution of formation, and this has been run by the counsel for petitioners. The district shall not exercise, this will be new condition G just before it's the final condition in the resolution. The district shall not exercise jurisdiction over lands within its boundaries that are not within the San Antonio groundwater basin as defined by California Department of Water Resources in Bulletin 118, paren, as basins 3-14, close paren, period. And then we don't have that document in hard copy in our records, so just to close out the administrative record, to give you some background, normally the commission doesn't sit down and go through the legal descriptions of districts. We have the surveyor do that, and is approved by the executive officer. So to sort of bring this all together, you'd be delegating authority to the executive officer for this next part. But the condition would go on to read, petitioners shall submit the relevant portions of Bulletin 118 to the executive officer for review and approval prior to recordation of the certificate of completion. And what that'll do is it'll complete our hard copy files to show exactly what the boundary is and what lots are at issue. And they've done a lot of work on this. They showed it to us on the internet, but again, we didn't want to come in here and show you a website or do that kind of last minute detail. But this is a duty you can delegate to the executive officer, and it's already been given a lot of thought and worked out between the state and this petitioner and also the Santa Ynez River Conservation District. So that concludes my comments, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any questions for staff before we move to, do we have public comment?
Mr. Chair?
Jake,
Yes,
Commissioner Stark.
I actually have a question. It's probably for the council. I just want to confirm that my understanding is correct. The jurisdiction that is limited to the water basin is the power to manage the basin in the event of a shortage. Is my impression not correct that the actual pumping from groundwater is a property right that attaches to the overlying owner, and we don't adjudicate that? Am I essentially correct in that?
Yes, that's correct. The district will not put pipes in the ground or do any kind of delivery system. It's more of a management function in determining how to better use the groundwater basin through approval of a plan. So it's not anything that gives them physical structures to build. And the assessment, the Prop 218 assessment would not be assessed on the property that is in the Santa Ynez Basin Water District. So they have agreed not to do that, and this condition was developed, and we just basically found out about it 2 days ago, that it was going to be an issue. So we worked with the district manager to come up with the language, and I think that this will take care of it.
Commissioner Geyer.
So staff's recommendation on option 1 is still good, but it's the adoption of the revised resolution? Right. Okay.
Okay. This is all mandated by state law. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions, concerns? Can I get a motion?
I'll move.
Oh, there was one public comment. That's right.
Chair Levanino and members of the board, we do have one request here in Santa Barbara, Alan Dowd, and we might have another request in Santa Maria. I haven't received the slip yet, but it did look like we did receive one, but we'll begin with Alan.
And in Santa Maria, when they're done, just come up to the microphone and we'll work the paperwork.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. We want to, my name's Alan Dowd, I'm counsel for the petitioner, and I want to thank staff for that emphasis on the jurisdictional and boundary issue. That is very important to us, that we're clear that we don't have any intention or desire to exercise any jurisdiction anywhere outside of the San Antonio groundwater basin. I'd also like to clarify with regard to funding that there are a couple of references in the report, in the executive officer's report, to the formation of an assessment district. Our intention, and it's reflected in our petition, is that the district itself will do its 218 assessment and levy it that way. There won't be formation of a separate or subsidiary district for assessments. That concludes my comments, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? All right.
Thank you.
Good. We'll go to Santa Maria. Thank you very much. State your name, please, for the record.
Yes, my name is Bill Bulow, and I'm with the Santa Ynez River Water Conservation District. Can you hear me up there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I represent the Santa Ynez River Water Conservation District, and I was contacted by Mr. Hood and Mr. Dillon and Mr. Dowd, and we are in concurrence that there are several parcels that are within the sphere of influence of the Santa Ynez River Water Conservation District. And we were apprised of the resolution that they are proposing, that the new district would not have jurisdiction over the parcels that are within the Santa Ynez River Water Conservation District's sphere of influence. So that's just the comment I wanted to make it. And by our calculation, it's about 13 different parcels that are likely affected and are within the sphere of influence. But we're happy to work with Mr. Hood and Mr. Dillon on figuring out which parcels are which, and we're happy to support the formation of the new district. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Guyer?
Entertain a motion?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I move for the formation of the district under option 1 and the adoption of the revised resolution.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Savis.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield.
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman.
Aye.
Commissioner Welp.
Aye.
Chair Lavanino.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, that moves us to out-of-agency service agreement, item number 1.
Yes, Chair Lavanino and members of the board, out-of-agency service agreement, item number 1 is to consider recommendations for Lafco file number 19-04 for the City of Santa Maria for an out-of-agency service agreement for the St. Marie Mobile Home Park and consider to adopt an agreement.
All right, Mr. Hood?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a PowerPoint. I did a lot of PowerPoints for this commission meeting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Honing my skills. Okay, we received an application for an out-of-agency service agreement from the Santa Maria City Council for the St. Marie Mobile Home Park. Property is located within the sphere of influence of the district. It comprises about 5.13 acres located at 1380 West Main Street, southeast corner of Main and Hanson Way, Santa Maria. Surprisingly, it's outside the city limits, but it's within the sphere of influence. I'll show you a map in a second. Santa Barbara Environmental Health Services, Santa Barbara County, has determined that the domestic connection to this existing well has been tested to have nitrate levels exceeding maximum contaminant levels. There's the location. It's kind of a little finger that goes into the city, and sphere of influence is the red line. It's about 5 acres. So basically, the reason is to mobile home park managers distributed notifications to residents and is currently providing bottled water to the populations within the mobile home park. And the Government Code Section 56133C, which is the out-of-agency service agreement, allows the commission to approve an out-of-agency service agreement if the public health and safety of the residents is affected, and that is the case here. I've also talked to the city community development director about annexing this land, and we're kind of exploring that, but there is an immediate problem currently. City determined that there was sufficient environmental determination at the time that the mobile home park was built. But we, in the abundance of caution, have prepared a categorical exemption, Class 1 and Class 3, from CEQA. So that, I think, is more appropriate. So basically, the conclusion is that the out-of-agency service agreement criteria has been met, that there's an existing health and safety issue for the residents, that city would contract approval with the property owner, and any necessary construction would take place, and it represents a logical and reasonable extension of city water service. And so I would recommend you approve the out-of-agency service agreement and the environmental determination, find that the project would not result in additional impacts, and I think that's it. I don't think I have it. Well, wait a minute.
Mr. Hood, how do they deal with their wastewater there?
I believe, I'll have to ask the community development director, but I believe they have an on-site system.
Okay.
A package system, is that correct?
Yeah. He's here. If he wants. I'm just curious. I don't want to come back and have a septic issue at the same time.
Sean Ng, Community Development Director, City of Santa Maria. It's an outside system.
Okay. Connected to, so it's so where does it connect to?
It's a package plan.
It's a package?
Right.
Okay,
Mhm.
got it. Self-contained.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, do we have any public comment? Any questions? from board
Chair
members?
Lavanino and members of the commission, we have no requests to speak.
Questions from board members? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval of staff recommendation.
We have a motion that has been seconded, okay, and thirded by Commissioner Welt. Roll
Commissioner-
call, please.
Commissioner Seves?
Aye.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer?
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield?
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman? Aye. Commissioner Welt?
Aye.
Chair Lavanino.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimous.
Okay, very good. All right, now the fun one. This is called business item number 1. Madam Clerk.
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, business item number 1 is to receive and file a report on the review of SB Lafco agricultural and open space policies. Recommend consider adoption of recommended revisions by the Agricultural and Open Space Ad Hoc Committee.
Okay, Mr. Hood.
Okay, this is my final PowerPoint, I think. So by way of background, at your commission's December 6, 2018 commission meeting, the commission appointed 3 members of your commission to serve on the ad hoc Committee on Agriculture and Open Space Policy Review. And the goal of the ad hoc committee was to basically determine if the policies that we have currently are adequate, if they needed revision, or if they needed any kind of changes. So the commission, the ad hoc committee was Commissioners Seves, Hartman, and Waterfield. And one of the things that we were asked to do as staff was to send out requests for comments to the planning agencies, the 8 cities in the county of Santa Barbara, the independent special districts, and the agricultural and business communities. So we had several changes that staff recommended, and the deadline was May 15th, 2019 to submit the comments. We received comments from 15 public agencies, organizations, and individuals. Several comments were submitted after the deadline. A couple of cities, the city of Goleta, the city of Solvang just submitted one a day or so ago, but I advised the commission of the comments that were received, and the commission reviewed the comments on June 6th, and after reviewing the comment letters, the ad hoc committee unanimously agreed to the changes set forth in the following slide. And we don't have it, or do we? It's actually it's in Exhibit A in your commission packet. And I can review that. There were and it's in Exhibit A. So Exhibit A basically is a recreation of the current policies. There's a word that was deleted in Roman numeral IV4, and there was one addition that was made that mirrors the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act as far as having a memorandum of agreement between the city and the county that would be negotiated between the city councils and the Board of Supervisors prior to the Lafco application being submitted, which we have done a couple of times. Exhibit B is the current policies. Exhibit C is the staff suggested changes, but the consensus or the unanimous agreement of the ad hoc committee is that the current policies be reaffirmed with that one change I mentioned in the at the end of Roman numeral 5, actually item 5. So I know we have members of the ad hoc committee on the commission today, and we received and reviewed 70 pages of comments that are included in your packet. And Jacqueline made copies of all of those pages. And they came from a variety of individuals, the business community, the ag community, and cities and the county submitted a very good comment letter. So happy to answer any questions about the process. The ad hoc committee met 3 times. And finally, in June, on June 6th, was the last meeting that we held. Staff attended the meetings as well.
Okay, so my Exhibit A is actually the letter from the EDC, and so I'm curious. So then after that, I do have a lined out. Is this the proposal with the lined out, and then the other sections? That's, I don't have.
Exhibit A.
Hold on. Let me see.
Mine's right.
Yeah, I'm missing that page. Okay. Maybe it is. I don't think so. It's today's. Thank you. Okay. All right. So, questions, concerns, questions at this point of staff before we move to public comment. Commissioner Guyer.
I just have kind of a wordsmithing question on Exhibit C on that page. The very first sentence. I wonder if, where it says Lafco must consider the effect that any proposal may produce, wouldn't the word have be a little bit better?
Okay, where exactly are you?
On the first line on Exhibit C, and this is not recommended for inclusion. So that
I can't hear you.
That would be deleted
Okay,
from
that all
the
got deleted.
recommendation.
What? Oh, you're going to delete the entire section?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Exhibit A in the packet is the recommended recommendations from the ad hoc committee, recommended changes, and only there's one deletion on page 1, Roman numeral IV 4, and the addition of 5, which is the memorandum of agreement in Roman numeral 5 and 5. So those are the only changes that the ad hoc committee is recommending.
So maybe.
I have a follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those are staff recommended additions, but those are not recommended for approval by the ad hoc committee. The only changes are in Exhibit A.
Yes, Exhibit C is what was referred to the ad hoc committee for review and discussion, and then they came up with Exhibit A.
I was having a hard time with a black and white sheet figuring what was going in and what was coming.
Yeah, so maybe somebody from the ad hoc can kind of walk us through real quick, just kind of the thought process and the changes.
Well, I'll take a stab at that
Okay.
since you're looking my direction.
I didn't see anybody else with a light on, so.
We met about 3 times and looked at the Lafco white paper and the various comments that were submitted. And I think we came to the conclusion that our existing policies, basically status quo, would serve us well enough going forward. Since that time, I have seen a number of comments about number 5 on our agenda and asking us to simply delete that as well. So I think there will be some public comment about that. And I know that more people learned about this hearing today, and there may be, additional issues that arise that we may want to reconsider. I think each ad hoc committee member reserved the right to reconsider during this meeting as we hear additional information.
Okay. Commissioner Seves.
Number 5 is part of our current policies.
1 through 4. So is 5 and 6 added? That's my question. No, of Roman numeral 5.
When you go to Exhibit B, isn't 5 part of our current policy?
No, that was added in Exhibit A, the underlined section in 5, and it really mirrors, as I mentioned, the section from the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act.
Let's read that so everybody knows what we're talking about. It's a memorandum of agreement between the city and the county should be used and amended as needed to address the impacts on and conversion of ag lands on the fringe of a city, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Okay. All right, so that was previous or that was added?
It was added.
Good, okay.
That was added, and I know that when I speak for Santa Maria, that fits perfect, because when you look at our hospital and our college that sits on the fringe of ag land, there's no room for expansion. So I want to keep number 5 in.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did discuss that number 5 very thoroughly, and it was, we all agreed on it. We didn't recommend any changes on it, and that's why it's presented in its current form.
Absolutely. I believe it was unanimous.
Yeah.
So were you, you were talking about that number 5?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, may I make just
Sure,
one other?
absolutely.
So we did delete the introduction, which is also in the act, because it's duplicative and we don't need it. So I just want to point that out.
That's correct.
Okay, fantastic. Commissioner Stark.
Yes, I have a question about the scope of number 5. I understand that it appears to be a policy that encourages the use of memorandum of understanding between the city and the county. And my question is to the subject matters that we would favor seeing. Does this include buffers, acreage mitigation, or whatever the city and the county can possibly agree on? Is it comprehensive, or is there something we're particularly looking at?
I think each city is going to be different, but an MOU is whatever you can turn it into.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would hope at any memorandum to be all-inclusive.
Well, I would think that it's intended to reflect the particular circumstances of the individual case, both in terms of what is lost and the need for the development in question. And now it's the intent to leave it open-ended, but to indicate we're looking for an agreement. Is that essentially it?
That's what it sounds like.
That's correct.
That's the way I take it. Okay.
Yeah, it depends on the negotiations between the city and the county, and it could go up to the highest level, city council, board of supervisors, and bearing in mind that the county has a very strict policy on agricultural land in the general plan and comprehensive land use element, and cities have something different, but it could be a buffer. It could include any kind of mitigation. We're not telling each of the agencies what to put in that MOA, so whatever they come up with would be a consideration by your commission when you're reviewing a sphere of influence change or an annexation. That we would look at that and take it very seriously.
Okay, Commissioner Geiger.
Yeah, I think the key intent is there is a mutual agreement between the two parties.
Yeah, that's what I thought it said. And if I might further, Mr. Chair, my understanding is that our primary obligation is to follow the dictates of the Knox-Cortese-Hertzberg Act, and that says the 17 things that we have to take into consideration, the findings that we have to make, and the balancing between the need for development and orderly development and the need to protect agriculture and other valuable open space. That's in the statute. We have to do it. We can't get away from it. And similarly, the cities that are proposing annexation that includes development, they have to do CEQA. They're required to do environmental review, and one of the things they're required to review is the effect on agriculture. And if they identify that, then they have an obligation to mitigate it if it's feasible. So by not, I guess my point is, by not adopting additional regulations, we're not really giving up any discretion, and we're not saying you can get away with a pass on seeker or anything like that. So,
Correct? Your lights on. Comment? Oh, Commissioner.
Oh,
Hartman.
we did have a letter on this from our county planning and development, so I just thought I would read that, bring it top of mind. Section 5, Policy 5, pursuant to Government Code Section 56425B, a city and county are required to meet and develop an agreement on development standards and planning and zoning as a precursor to LAFCO's considering a boundary change to a sphere of influence. The proposed policy's language should establish a joint goal of agricultural preservation in addition to its focus on addressing impacts of conversion of agricultural lands. So that's our county position, that we want to make sure our goal as LAFCO is orderly development and protecting agricultural lands. So,
Yep. Okay, perfect. So we will move on to public comment. We have how many requests to speak? 15?
Chair Levanino and members of the commission, I have 15 requests to speak on this item.
Which for LAFCO may be a record. But I just dealt with 211, so.
It might be a record since the last time Isla Vista was being discussed, but
if anybody brings up cannabis, you're out. Okay? Yeah, till next Tuesday. All right, so, if anybody wants to speak for 2 minutes, you can come forward first and just give your name. Otherwise, if you want to wait and do the entire 3 minutes, we'll go in order. So if anybody wants 2 minutes, come on up and state your name and state your case.
I'll make this one short and sweet. Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Paula Perotti, Mayor for the City of Goleta. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today about the Santa Barbara LAFCO agricultural and open space policies. The City of Goleta provided you with a comment letter dated June 4th, 2019. Our City Council was made aware of Mr. Hood's request for comments only after the deadline for comments, so I understand you did receive that letter. Thank you. The City of Goleta supports the policy recommendations set forth in the letter from the open stakeholders, which is a group, as you know, comprised of both conservationalists and agricultural interests. We agree with the Open's letter and that the California LAFCO white paper that highlights the importance of preserving agricultural land in Santa Barbara County and emphasize that it is a core LAFCO responsibility. We also agree with their recommendation that LAFCO should undertake a comprehensive review of its policies and process along with local spheres of influence. Protecting agricultural lands and open space while encouraging infill development and containing urban sprawl should continue to be among LAFCO's highest priorities. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nobody else?
Nobody else for 2 minutes. All right.
Okay. Chair Levanino, members of the commission, we are going to go to Mayor Janelle Osborne to be followed by Jason Stillwell.
Thank you. As mayor for the city of Lompoc, I am very appreciative of the ad hoc committee and its members for taking this under consideration. You did your due diligence, you looked at all of the material, you reviewed what the white paper required, and you heard from the local communities. So thank you for doing that. I will continue to disagree that any revisions are needed, so I appreciate that there are minimal recommendations for the current Exhibit A being recommended. After completing a general plan a few years ago, the city updated it and needs the flexibility to address all the options regarding our housing demands, job growth, and improving our local economy. Lompoc is more than committed to preserving open spaces, given we have more than 200 acres of park and open space and 6.9 square miles for a population of 40,000. So, that being said, again, thank you to the ad hoc committee, and Exhibit A is better than the original proposed changes, and we appreciate the consideration for that flexibility. And in the future, I just ask that you, as this governing body, apply its policies equitably and while balancing the unique growth of each of these communities as you have with Santa Maria and Goleta recently. So keeping that in mind, please think about that. There has been growth allowed aggressively into ag property in several areas already. So it needs to be uniquely looked at for each of these communities and respected. So again, thank you for Exhibit A from the ad hoc. I really appreciate it, and I think it is very acceptable, and we look forward to you supporting that. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jason Stillwell, to be followed by Andy Caldwell.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Jason Stillwell, City Manager, Santa Maria, and we essentially agree with the comments you just heard from the Lompoc Mayor. The City of Santa Maria supports staff's recommendation to approve the revisions by the Ag and Open Space, or the Ad Hoc Committee. The Santa Maria City Council approved the letter that was distributed in the packet, and in summary, it found the City Council found that the ad hoc recommendations consistent with LAFCO's rules and responsibilities as established in state law. Some of the other proposals the council felt exceeded that authority. The council also expressed support for the existing policy without changes. And one challenge the City Council has is recognizing that the current City Council and future City Councils will be faced with challenges in addressing anticipated growth. SB-CAG anticipates 30,000 new residents in Santa Maria and 10,000 new jobs in the next 20 years. The city's embarked upon an update of its general plan, and with that, it strives for balanced, logical, and reasonable development and infill, and needs to consider all options in addressing the anticipated growth and then the options for the City Council to have in addressing those through the general plan. The City Council seeks to maintain its authority with LAFCO to accommodate these changes in a way that maintains quality of life of existing and future residents. And that concludes my comments. Thanks.
Our next speaker is Andy Caldwell, to be followed by Jim Throop.
I couldn't help but notice each one of those left over a minute if you want to give it to me. Hey, can you start over? I haven't started yet. Andy Caldwell representing CoLab. We could support A or the status quo. I want to remind you that the quote-unquote open letter didn't include the Cattlemen's Association, which represents the majority of the landowners that you're talking about versus row crop farmers. And one of the things we always want to emphasize, ag is not open space. It's somebody's business. It's somebody's private property. Las Padres Forest is open space. A park is open space, but ag is not open space. And I wish that that would be clarified all the time and emphasized. With regard to the RENA mandate and the 3.5 million homes that Gavin Newsom wants in California, has to be balanced with the fact that fewer and fewer people in our society can afford to farm. And here's two big issues that, again, I wish the Board of Supervisors and LAFCO and SB-CAG would have a mega meeting on this. The county has done a huge, huge disservice to this very thing, because what they did is they said, okay, here's the city. That's residential, that's commercial, that's industrial. Everything else is ag. Doesn't matter slopes, it doesn't matter water availability, it doesn't matter what kind of soils. Everything else in this county is zoned ag. So by default, we can't grow anywhere else because the county calls it ag, when in reality it may not be suitable for ag. Then the other issue is all these communities started in the heart of the valley floor. 4 farmers in Santa Maria divvied up a corner, and that became the beginning. Well, it's all on the valley floor. That's where the development was. That's where the farms were. That's where they dedicated land for schools and parks and everything else. Well, your horrible policy, the state's horrible policy, that new development has to be contiguous to existing development, is the death sentence for ag. They have nowhere to go because concerns of leapfrog development. Well, the leapfrog development allows you to leap over prime ag land. Those are 2 policies of the county zoning everything ag, and you forcing prime ag, which is in the valley florist, to be gobbled up, has to be changed. You're your own worst enemy and our worst enemy. Most ag is already in conservation easements. The county is 90% open space right now / undeveloped. So we don't want to try to force anybody out of agriculture, nor do we want to pretend we can force people to stay in agriculture. I can go on for another minute and tell you why people are getting out of agriculture, but you know that. Water, labor cost, overtime costs, pesticides and herbicide regs. You can't just say, hey, we're going to make it stay in ag when there's nobody volunteering who can afford to stay in ag. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jim Throop, to be followed by Brian Halverson.
Jim, Andy took 15 of your seconds. Sorry about that.
Wow, I did that again. No, thank you for letting me speak again. I've been up here a few times now. I do want to thank the ad hoc committee for all the work they did. I know those committees are time consuming, so I appreciate all the effort they put into it. And I do believe the changes that were suggested in option A are reasonable and meet the requirements of all the concerned parties. Going from that on a different note, and I know you're aware of it, but I'll just say that anyways, is it was just mentioned the governor's goal of all the additional housing, not just in our county, but throughout the state. It's a critical shortages. Absolutely apparent in Lompoc. If you go in there and you see, if you remember, I bring back my little graphs in supply and demand. I brought back rental rates, buying rates. It's probably not even critical. It's probably even a higher degree of critical. I don't know what the next word above critical would be for Lompoc, but we really do need to come back to Lafco and talk to you in the near future about how we can handle our housing needs. We have so many people that are continuing to come when they can't afford the South County. We're the next closest. So like I said, prices are going up. People are now doubling up, tripling up in the different homes. So that is a problem. The only thing would be my other concern is if we do waiver and we go off of option A or exhibit A and look at something else, if this were to go down that road, I'd really strongly suggest the commission return this back to the ad hoc committee, have the ad hoc committee then go reach out to the different entities, primarily Lompoc and Santa Maria, so they can do a face-to-face sit down, and instead of the written material that was submitted, really get a better feel. We can give you the emotional part, we can give you more details on it. I just think that would be a better situation. And I do thank you for the time. And I have a minute, so I bring up cannabis or no? All right, no, I won't do that to you. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Brian Halverson, to be followed by Nancy Emerson.
Yes, Brian Halverson, City of Lompoc Planning Manager. We do absolutely agree with Exhibit A, as the mayor and city manager mentioned, but we do have some small changes that I've provided a copy and we pass out to the chair and the members of the commission. I think there's 9 copies there, if we could pass that out. Just wanted to quickly explain why we're recommending these 2 changes and really kind of echo what's already been said. As we know, there is a housing shortage. There's a huge housing crisis. And the first change that we're recommending, and I apologize this is coming late because we already made a comment that's attached in the staff report. Policy 4.4, I'll just go ahead and read it. It says, consideration shall be given to permitting sufficient land within each city and or agency in order to encourage economic development, reduce the cost of housing, and allow timing options for physical and orderly development. One thing that we would like the commission to consider is adding the following wording: accommodate projected housing. So I'm not quite sure how you would put that there. It could be basically after one of those comments or commas. And the main reason for that suggestion from the city of Lompoc is the 3.5 million homes that the governor is wanting built by 2025. And as our city manager already mentioned, there's a huge demand for housing in Lompoc, as well as other areas on the Central Coast. The second one in the attachment that I passed out is policy 5.3. It reads, the sphere of influence revision or update for an agency providing urban services where the revision includes prior agricultural land shall be discouraged. Development shall be guided towards areas containing non-prime agricultural lands unless such action will promote disorderly, inefficient development of the community or area. And my comment, or the city of Lompoc's comment that we passed out, instead of putting prior, I believe the intent was prime, as You see later on in that policy, it talks about containing, it talks about non-prime agricultural land, so I think it's prime in that area. So we'd like you to consider that. That concludes our comments, and I'm available to answer any questions if you have regarding those changes.
Commissioner Geyer.
Could you expand a little bit on your definition of projected?
Very good question. So, as we all know, we have RENA numbers that we need to meet, but if there truly is a huge, even larger need for housing in the area that's beyond the RENA, that could be a projection based on existing conditions in a city. It could be other factors. I know in Lompoc, we have a heavy influence with the Vandenberg Air Force Base. As that begins to expand, it also puts pressure, and there is a need for housing, and housing that's close by to that base as opposed to building it north or south of us. So we did not provide a definition, but that's something that we've thought about.
So your definition is beyond your general plan meaning?
Well, I mean, it could. I mean, I would say that the governor's mandate is definitely beyond the general plan. And the governor is saying that there's a huge crisis and it cannot be solved just by RENA. So.
Okay. Thank you, Barry. Commissioner Stark.
No, I'll save it for when we comment afterward.
All right. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Nancy Emerson, to be followed by Kaylee Ellis.
Seen you before.
I think you look familiar. There you go.
Susan Bellany is en route to the Sierras and not able to be here today. As San Ynez Valley resident Susan Bellany and myself, Nancy Emerson, work to protect our agricultural landscape. And we do want to thank Lafco Director and the Commission for considering revisions to your current ag and open spaces policy. We became interested in Lafco's ag preservation policy when Solvang was considering increasing its sphere of influence by a third, primarily on ag land. Mr. Hood graciously met with us to talk about Lafco and ag preservation. We apologize for not following through sooner, but we got hooked into cannabis in a big way and working on that. We did study the materials related to the revision. Both the CalAFCO white paper and the Opens program recommendations were very useful recommendations, as were letters from Lisa Plowman and Claire Weinman. And I thought that Lompoc's planning manager pointed to the need for state-level language revisions to reflect the heightened ag land preservation priority. We sense from some of the letters that it's uncomfortable for those who see annexation of ag lands as a primary city improvement tool to even question its use, whether or not it is economically and environmentally beneficial long-term. And it's tempting to see annexing ag land as the only or primary way to deal with the new state housing requirements, which are rigorous. But when one learns how much ag land is being lost each year, we think it's critical that you adopt policies that address this problem more forcefully than the proposed revisions do. They're not really even a compromise between competing interests. We've attached the July 11th recommended revisions, inserting items from EDC Plowman and Wyman letters because we support those. And in addition, we did look at those underlined sections. It's fine if you don't include the first one. But the mitigations, Claire Wyman commented that any mitigations need to offer meaningful protections, not undermine conservation of ag lands. I thought that was really important. And finally, please review existing spheres of influence to determine which are still appropriate under the revised policies. Thank you.
And our next speaker is Kaylee Ellis, to be followed by Maggie Hall.
Good afternoon, Chair Lavanino and Commissioners. My name is Kaylee Ellis, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Grower Shipper Association of Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo counties. The vast majority of our members, 170 members, are located in the Santa Maria and Lompoc valleys, which have been and will continue to be a focus of agricultural-urban interface issues. We appreciate the opportunity to submit our written comments in May on this important topic. Lafco's role is essential in proactively anticipating and preventing predictable land use conflicts and conserving agriculture. The association is very concerned with the impacts to agriculture through direct land use conversion, as well as the impacts from expanding land use conflicts to areas that were formerly surrounded by and compatible with agriculture. We appreciate that policy revisions are being contemplated, but the proposed language provided in Exhibit A falls short of what is needed in updating Lafco's agricultural and open space policies. We restate our support for the points articulated in the EDC letter dated March 16, 2018, and would like to see more of the specific red line wording changes incorporated into Lafco revisions to its policies on agricultural conservation. We also suggest the following revisions. 1, we are concerned that a memorandum of agreement between a city and the county that can be amended as needed is overly ambiguous, facilitates the development of agricultural lands, and circumvents Lafco's role by undermining the intended goal of agricultural land conservation. We believe that a transparent, permanently binding agreement that can be reviewed by stakeholders, including agricultural or other interested parties, should factor into Lafco's contemplation and be a binding condition of approval of changes to jurisdictional boundaries. Secondly, Lafco policies use the term prime agricultural land, non-prime agricultural land, and agricultural land interchangeably. We believe that references to agricultural land is most appropriate. Lastly, we are very concerned that conditions intended to minimize negative effects to agricultural resources have not always been honored after annexation. We encourage greater attention and implementation of policies that permanently memorialize such agreements in a binding manner that cannot be discarded. We believe that the Santa Barbara County Agricultural Buffer Ordinance and Right to Farm policy can serve as models, and there should be permanently binding conditions prior to approving changes to jurisdictional boundaries. We appreciate the opportunity to balance multiple needs as potential changes to jurisdictional boundaries are considered by Lafco. Developing and implementing strong policies encouraging conservation of agricultural lands are essential to orderly land use patterns, preventing predictable land use conflicts, and maintaining a vibrant community and economy in Santa Barbara County. Thank you for incorporating these comments as the policy updates move forward. Thank you.
Just a quick comment.
Commissioner Hartman.
Thank you. I think it was said during our ad hoc process that the grower shippers had withdrawn their support for the letter, the open letter. So I'm surprised to see you here and just wanted to ask once again, you're affirming your support.
Correct. Yes, we have always supported the EDC letter, and we continue to support.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Maggie Hall, to be followed by Tara Messing.
Good afternoon. My name is Maggie Hall, and I'm a staff attorney at the Environmental Defense Center. First, thank you so much for the opportunity to comment on this important process. I will address our background work on this matter and the recommendations we put together to this commission designed to strengthen LAFCO policy to be better protective of agricultural resources. And my colleague Tara Messing will address why the commission should reject the current ad hoc committee proposal as well as the initial staff recommendations. By way of background, as part of our Open Space Preservation and Education Network, or OPEN project, we've engaged in a collaborative process that has brought together a diverse group of conservationists and agricultural interests. As part of this process, the group got together to develop specific policy recommendations to LAFCO to best preserve agricultural resources. These recommendations are set forth in the letter that many people here have mentioned today, March 16th, 2018, included in the staff report. This letter has broad support. It's signed by local ranchers, the Grower Shipper Association, the Farm Bureau of Santa Barbara County, as well as many conservation groups. In addition, the City of Goleta and the City of Solvang have both recently come out in support of our letter, noting that protecting agricultural lands and open spaces while encouraging infill development and containing urban sprawl should be among LAFCO's highest priorities. We would like to again urge the Commission to consider these recommendations in any policy revisions in order to best carry out LAFCO's role in preserving agricultural land. A primary function of LAFCO, as you know, is to guide development toward vacant land and away from agricultural lands, reducing urban sprawl. Clear and effective policies are critical to that purpose. As the Cal-Lafco White Paper notes, the Cortesi-Knox-Hertzberg Act contains mere baseline parameters and guidelines from which individual LAFCOs can carry out their mandate. It's thus imperative for LAFCOs to establish effective individual policies to discourage expansion into ag lands. Our recommendations, as detailed in the open letter, include the following. First, certain Santa Barbara County LAFCO policies are ambiguous and must be clarified and strengthened. For example, the varying distinctions between prime agricultural land versus non-prime agricultural land must be assessed. In addition, policies 4 and 5 contain language that's vague and ambiguous regarding how ag land is to be protected. The policies should further be revised to prioritize infill development. LAFCOs must be encouraged to work with the Santa Barbara County to ensure that the county includes buffer zones when local boundary changes are considered. And our last recommendation is for LAFCO to conduct a review of existing spheres of influence in order to comply with its policy number 2, which states that high-value ag land should not be included in urban spheres of influence. Where appropriate, it should make changes in line with that review. We therefore request that the Commission modify its policies in light of these comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Williams?
Well, I just, since I'm a non-voting member today, I just wanted to urge my voting board members to really consider this letter. It's real seldom in our county that a kind of dream team like this can hold together for many months. I'm sure they were talked to by many folks about it, but they've held together in their recommendations, and just feel that this board should take a broad view of it and look and support those recommendations. I also think that it should be noted that Ms. Emerson, Mr. Caldwell, Mayor Osborne, and Mayor Perotti should get gold stars for how much time they've spent in county hearing rooms this week on various matters.
All righty. Next.
Our next speaker is Tara Messing, to be followed by Mary Ellen Brooks.
Good afternoon. My name is Tara Messing, and I'm a staff attorney with the Environmental Defense Center. While we appreciate the efforts to revise current LAFCO policies, the revisions put forth by the Ad Hoc Committee in Exhibit A actually serve to weaken policy protections to agricultural lands in the county by focusing on mitigation rather than avoidance. The revised policy language at Policy 5, Subsection 5 states, quote, "Memorandum of agreement between a city and the county should be used and amended as needed to address the impacts on and conversion of agricultural lands on the fringe of a city." This language is ambiguous, especially with regards to the phrase, "the fringe of a city," which is vague and does not make clear which areas may be affected by this policy change. We are also concerned that this language will encourage the conversion of agricultural lands rather than increase protections. The Cal-Lafco White Paper at page 12 classifies memorandum of agreements as a form of mitigation of impacts to agricultural lands. In the White Paper's hierarchy for agricultural land preservation strategies, the most preferred strategy is to avoid impacts, and the least preferred is to mitigate impacts. Mitigation is the least preferred strategy because, quote, "Regardless of the type of mitigation measures proposed or pursued, this path will inevitably lead to a net loss of agricultural land if it is converted," end quote. Given this guidance, we request that the LAFCO board reject the policy changes proposed by the Ad Hoc Committee and instead prioritize policies that prevent the loss of agricultural lands. We also do not support the staff's suggested revisions to existing policies contained in Exhibit C. The revised policies do not address the recommendations set forth in the open letter, which we urge the Commission to consider. Specifically, the proposed change of Policy 5, Subsection 6, concerning mitigation is inconsistent with the purpose of LAFCO, existing policy, and the Cal-Lafco White Paper. The Cortesi-Knox-Hertzberg Act strongly discourages the use of prime agricultural land for development, and one of the main goals of LAFCOs is to conserve such lands. As recognized in the Cal-Lafco report, quote, "Avoidance is also consistent with the growing recognition at the state level that future development should, when and where possible, be directed to infill areas located in existing urban footprints to limit the amount of transportation-related greenhouse gases generated," end quote. Moreover, the director of the county's Planning and Development Department recognized in a letter to Mr. Paul Hood dated May 10, 2019, that the revised policy's suggested mitigation ratio of a 1-to-1 would result in a 50% net loss of agricultural lands, thus failing to fully mitigate impacts to agricultural resources. Lafco must adopt policies that encourage cities to implement more efficient development patterns and promote infill first. Policy 5 must not focus on mitigating for the loss of these lands, but instead promote the preservation. We encourage Lafco to reject these policy changes and instead revise its policies to be more protective of agricultural lands in light of its statutory duties and as detailed in the open letter. Thank you for your consideration.
Commissioner Geyer.
Yes, I have a question for the speaker. Like the city of Lompoc came up with a recommended suggestion for a change of, do you have a recommendation for the change of that word fringe that would define it more clearly?
We don't think that that phrase should be used at all, as it is ambiguous in terms of having something prepared right now, what could replace that. We don't have anything prepared at this moment. But as a whole, the proposed language has issues in terms of ambiguity, and especially with the phrase conversion of agricultural lands also is an issue.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hartman.
So would deleting that number 5 altogether be acceptable in your perspective?
We urge the commission to look at the open letter and consider those policy revisions, and if not go forward with the proposed revisions in Exhibit A.
Okay, next speaker.
Our next speaker is Mary Ellen Brooks, to be followed by Lori Tamura.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Mary Ellen Brooks, and I'm here today to speak on behalf of Citizens Planning Association and specifically the North County Land Use Committee. We have been part of the collaborative group that started looking at agricultural land policies and LAFCO policies, and I found in my file the very first booklet that was put out in December 2013. And it was a wonderful collaborative process. And I am here today to say that CPA is requesting that LAFCO adopt the recommendations from the Open Project original letter, reject the proposed policy change allowing for the MOAs with the cities, as it may lead to more ag land conversion. And the whole point of this is, we want to make sure that we are preserving our ag land. When I think back in 2013, that was before the current LAFCO director was in place, and I would go to or listen to city council hearings, and former mayors would say things like, well, we need to expand all the way, and this is in Lompoc, we need to expand to the 101, or we need to expand to Surf Beach. So when we had the opportunity to sit down, and the number one request of the group was to contact LAFCO, have LAFCO come to the collaborative meetings so that we could all be on the same page. In Lompoc, before 2013, I don't think there were annexations that were ever rejected. I mean, we're suffering the effects of some of them in the Lompoc Valley right now. So I'm hoping that the language that you decide upon is the strongest language and the most specific language, because we never know who's going to be here 20 years from now and putting these policies into reality. So thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Lori Tamura, to be followed by Jay Freeman.
I'll take all the extra minutes that
Sure.
are lying on the ground. Hi, my name is Lori Tamura. I'm a land use planner in the city of Santa Maria. And I think the first comment here today is everybody in this room supports agriculture. We support strawberries, we support the rodeo, we support cattle. This is not an issue of do we support agriculture or not. But agriculture in and of itself, in your role, is just one of many layers of decisions that will come before you as annexations come. I find it ironic that I think the only other person in the room might be Shane Stark that was here in 1993 when the city of Santa Maria adopted their sphere of influence and annexation program that included a full environmental analysis, fiscal analysis, infrastructure plan, and established a Greenbelt agreement that said no urban development beyond this particular line. That line has held for 25 years. And I think Lafco as an entity needs to be proud of that. Over the last 25 years, we've built parks, schools, fire stations, library, and 8,000 units to house Santa Barbara County citizens, many of those who commute to Santa Barbara for jobs. We're the supply of housing for the North County and South County also. I'm proud to say that the city of Santa Maria has authorized the update of their general plan, sphere of influence, and annexation programs for the coming years. And the reason being is we have all of these other reports that have come out. The Association of Governments Regional Transportation and Sustainability Plan says you should densify your core. So they're going to look at, can they densify their core? Can they absorb 5,000 or 10,000 units inside the city as it currently exists? And then we have the Regional Growth Forecast 2000 to 2050, which says that Santa Maria will be absorbing 35,000 people, 10,000 jobs. At the same time, Santa Barbara will be absorbing 18,000 jobs and only 10,000 homes. There's a real mix match here between what's happening as far as regional planning goes. These are just as priority as agriculture is, and we need to balance all of these issues. The city will be bringing forth to you within the next 3 years an updated general plan, an annexation plan, sphere boundary plan with a full environmental impact report that will include mitigation for agriculture. It will also include a fiscal plan, a finance plan, and LAFCO will have the opportunity to make a fully informed decision at that time. We wholly support the Exhibit A information that was provided by your staff. So thank you very much, and I'm available for any questions. And I have all these documents. Thank you.
So do we.
Well, you know what, and just one more point. I appreciate the effort that happened with the open plan, but that was a very, very selective group of people. It did not include this, it did not include a whole lot. It was very selectively targeted. And I think we have to look at the whole picture, not just one particular segment. Okay. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jay Freeman, to be followed by Tom Figg. And after Tom Figg, we're going to Santa Maria for Joe Armendariz.
Hello. So my name is Jay Freeman, and I've been following issues on LAFCO now for about 4 years, and been during that time spending a lot of time learning from a number of special districts in the area. I happen to be on the board of a special district, but I'm not here representing them or anyone other than myself today. In summary, I'm glad these issues are being looked at and have lots of opinions, most of which I promise I won't bore you with today. But about the discussion today, I really didn't like the staff recommendation, but I still don't really like the ad hoc recommendation, and there are two reasons. The first is simple. I feel this gives too much power to cities and the counties in areas of dispute with respect to properties on the fringe of cities for services being offered by special districts, of which there are currently multiple. But the second, which I'm actually more interested in, is subtle. It's the incongruence between the definition of urban services and agricultural use and the awkward conflation of annexation and conversion. So it is my understanding, and this is even written in the EDC's letter, that the goal of LAFCO is to prevent the inefficient delivery of urban services, police, fire, water, and sanitation. I mean, there are also multiple, protect prime ag land, et cetera, but focusing on that one for a second. If you have urban sprawl, it costs more to provide these services, and that cost is often borne by other residents of California. Build up, not build out. Great. However, the policies of our LAFCO, frankly, sometimes manage to lead to a more unfortunate goal, which is seemingly preventing the delivery of services. So just because a property is being used for agriculture doesn't mean they aren't using all of police, fire, water, and sanitation. As pointed out by Andy Caldwell, awkwardly agreeing with him today, agriculture is not the same as open space. So this leads to scenarios that I've been walked through by multiple special districts in the area that provide sanitary service. At least 3 come readily to mind, wherein agricultural properties have been using septic tanks for toilets at work sheds in areas that are problem areas for our groundwater and oceans due to external concerns that providing a sewer hookup will lead to a sudden spring of development bypassing all land use planning. I would really encourage the board to look at the definitions in that section 5 around, I think it was like point 2, looking at the premise of annexation and conversion and try to figure out how to separate these things so we can actually get services that are being provided in order to help the environment to some of these agricultural properties, and to figure out how to, as possibly as part of the work with cities or special districts, I would love to have more special districts included, figure out how to use our development powers in order to prevent suddenly converting ag land into buildings, as opposed to saying, well, you aren't going to get a sewer hookup. I would like you to keep using a septic tank. All right, thank you.
Our next speaker is Tom Figg, and then we will go to Santa Maria for Joe Armendariz.
And is Joe our last speaker? No? Okay.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. It's kind of like old home week. I see some familiar faces here. I'm a land use consultant. I represent several property owners in the vicinity of Lompoc. God forbid I don't want to go sideways with the very city that we're working in partnership with. But the good news is that we certainly support everything that the city representatives indicated to you. You've seen a letter that we've submitted, and I certainly won't want to, belabor those points. But I think the fundamental issue here and I believe your executive director, Mr. Stark, also mentioned it, is that your charge is so much unique as compared to the county at large and the Board of Supervisors. You are governed by statutes that give you very, very clear direction, and that is a balancing act. You're not required or actually allowed, certainly not encouraged, to put one public policy priority on top of another. It's a balancing act. And my concern here is what you've been hearing is trying to elevate the importance of a particular public policy, resource conservation. That's an admirable goal, but it's one that's better served by a government agency that has broader authority, and that's the county itself. Because you folks have been charged and are limited by what the statutes tell you need to do. When all is said and done, it seems to me, I go back to what I heard at the very beginning of your deliberation, that the subcommittee was satisfied that your existing policies do the job. Well, we agree, 100%. And the more you start tinkering with things like this policy, and I'm not objecting, the people I represent aren't objecting to Exhibit A, but any time that you begin to tinker with these kinds of policies, it raises more and more questions. A question I have, and I turn to Mr. Stark only because he was a former county council, is that I don't think it was your intent with Exhibit A to abrogate your responsibilities and kick the ball to the county on issues regarding ag conversion. I hope that wasn't the intent, and I hope words like should says we encourage applicants in the cities to work with the county if there are disagreements on a given annexation proposal. Because again, the county has a different focus, and we would hope that you're not kicking the ball to them to make those kinds of decisions, that this is to encourage dialogue, but not for you to make it a requirement that you come to us with an MOU or we're going to deny your request. I hope that isn't the case, but I think it's worthy of you to discuss among yourselves tonight or today. All right, thank you very much.
And our next speaker, we are going to Santa Maria for Joe Armendariz, to be followed by Ken Huff, who is our final speaker.
Good afternoon. I'm Joe Armendariz, representing Santa Barbara County Taxpayers Association. I'm also a recovering Lafco commissioner. I forgot how exciting these meetings are. I know that Mr. Braitman used to bring us little cups of mini candy bars, not to put too much pressure on you, Mr. Hood. Look, I think what we want to try to avoid here is some sort of a Procrustean land use policy. For those of you who remember your Greek mythology, Procrustes was the innkeeper who, in order to make sure that all of his guests fit perfectly in the bed, would cut off the protruding limbs, hands, feet, including even heads. Everybody fit in the bed perfectly, but sometimes to catastrophic results. And I think that that's the potential we have here in terms of trying to make sure everything fits exactly per some policy and subchapter of some policy subchapter. We have to have flexibility. We have to have a sense of the unpredictability of market forces. The problem with unpredictability is it's not predictable. Who would have predicted 10 years ago that the largest retailer in the country wouldn't have a single storefront? I'm talking about Amazon. Or the largest transportation company wouldn't own a single car? I'm talking about Uber. I've never quite understood this sort of, I don't mean to be disrespectful, frankly, but this sort of obsession with agriculture. I think agriculture is good. I don't think it's any more important, though, than any other particular industry or sector. Agriculture is not more important than oil and gas. It's not more important than high tech or aerospace. And frankly, it's not more important than housing. And it seems to me that right now what we really need to be focusing on as policy makers and strategic planners is looking at what's actually going on the ground. Ralph Waldo Emerson said that you can't sometimes see the field from within the field. Let me tell you something that I've discovered recently with respect to the city of Lompoc. It's failing. It's failing economically. And that's tragic because it's adjacent to one of the most important, high-powered economic, intellectual, financial, economic assets in the world. I'm talking, of course, about Vandenberg Air Force Base. Our vice president came to the base, I understand, yesterday in order to call attention to this new Space Force. We have the opportunity, if we seize it, to leverage the value of Vandenberg Air Force Base in order to increase the standard of living of not just the good people of Lompoc, but quite frankly, the people throughout this region. The status quo is not acceptable. You've heard me say it before. Santa Barbara County has the third highest poverty rate in California. How in the world can we sit by and talk about defending the status quo? Because make no mistake about it, when you hear people get up and obsess over protecting agriculture, what it really is a metaphor for keeping everything the way it is. And that's not acceptable. Thank you.
And our final speaker is Ken Huff in Santa Maria.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I'm Ken Huff, Director of Santa Barbara County Action Network. For 17 years, we've worked to protect agricultural and environmental resources in our county. I want to say we strongly support the comments that were made by Nancy Emerson and Kaylee Ellis, EDC, and Morel Brooks. 8 and 9 years ago, SBCAN retained EDC to help oppose Lompoc's proposal to annex the Bailey Avenue corridor on the west side of the city, a corridor that is intensively farmed on some of the best farmland anywhere. It's still farmed, but it may be before Lafco in the future to consider that as well. Over the last 5 years, we have worked with EDC, and as you've heard, on the Open project. And I'm disappointed that our proposals are not included in your staff report. They're only before you today as part of an attachment, because EDC resubmitted them in their most recent letter. We encourage you to seriously consider and adopt the policy changes that we submitted. Earlier in this meeting, Jason Stillwell referenced the growth forecast of 30,000 people in Santa Maria that was made by the Santa Barbara County Association of Governments. And I didn't bring my prop like Lori did, but I only have it online and a few of the maps out of it. But the RTP that they've adopted and the sustainable community strategy that the plan is based on, and that all of the cities in the county participated in developing, that sustainable community strategy includes maps that show how the projected growth can be accommodated within the existing urban areas with minimal impact on agricultural land. So as that city goes forward with its general plan, I'm hopeful that they're going to pay close attention to that strategy and do all they can to keep the growth within the existing area. And I hope the same for Lompoc as well and the rest of the cities in the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, that closes out our public comment.
And Ken was our final speaker.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it back to the board for deliberations. Commissioner Geyer.
Well, first, I'd like to thank the ad hoc committee and staff for all the work that was put into this. I think it was really great. I'll just say that I do support the change of in number 5.3 of striking out the word prior and insert the word prime. I think that's what it was meant. And I guess my question is to the EO. I view 1 through 6 on item 5 as tools to effectively achieve policy 5. And I support the recommendations from the ad hoc committee.
One through 5. Okay. Other questions, concerns?
I do have I still,
Commissioner
I confess that I'm not really seeing a need in terms of what it gains us and in terms of the knowledge that we get or the discretion we have to amend the existing policies. The problem that I have is that all the suggestions in one way or another either limit the discretion that we have or purport to impinge on the discretion that we have or introduce terms that we have to interpret. And I don't think either one of those phenomenons is favorable. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do not underestimate for a second the difficulty that the Commission faces in attempting to balance the preservation of agriculture with accommodating the need to, to allocate our fair housing shares. It's difficult. I'm just not sure what adding to our policies gets us in advancing the state of our knowledge about whether the land that's being can be avoided, proposedly converted, can be avoided, or there's a better way to do things, or articulate the need. It seems to me that's all inherent in the application and negotiation process, and I'm really not convinced that we need to change anything.
Well, I, for one, am with you on that. I think because anytime you get into policies, you get into using language that it kind of reminds me of religion, and that you can have 3 people read a Bible verse and you end up with 4 different religions out of it, So it's like somebody's prime ag is somebody's open space, which is somebody's view shed, which is something else. So, I think what Lori said, that I hadn't really thought of, one of the things is that, that city line hasn't moved in 25 years. Lompok's been restrained for a long time. I don't think we're abdicating anything by sticking with where we're at right now. I think, each annexation is going to have to be looked upon in its own time. Each one has its own circumstances. One of the questions, and I think one of the speakers brought it up, was, regardless of an MOU, Lafco cannot abdicate any of its responsibility. So Lafco could at the time that happens and there's something between the city and the county where they have to kind of come to some agreement at some point, we still have to make those determinations up here. So, I'm not opposed to an MOU, but, I don't think it definitely doesn't get us out of what our requirements are. All of this talk does remind me of the late great Mr. Tobes, and one of the things he said about development, and he said everybody's for it except they don't like 2 things: high density or sprawl. And that's this whole thing about RENA numbers and where our housing is going to go. Nobody likes high density housing. Nobody wants you to go outside the scope of the city. So I'm just not convinced that I appreciate all the hard work that was done. And I think it raised a lot of the consciousness of what we're facing in the next few years. But we haven't failed. Lafco hasn't failed. Lafco's done exactly what I think it was intended to do. And I, for one, am, the change is it's not heresy to me. I could, I just don't. I think once you start opening something up and tinkering with it, you're asking for trouble. So, Commissioner Waterfield.
And I agree with you to that point. The reason why we did have an ad hoc committee was because Lafco, the majority of Lafco assigned to have an ad hoc committee due to the EDC white paper. And so we were very polite and gracious to address their concerns and the whole thing. And I think even at our second ad hoc committee, Executive Director Hood explained that we were doing everything appropriately under the laws of the state and everything, and it was, then why are we here? Because everything was working well. So that was why we ended up going through this whole 6 months of debate and trying to figure out what the other communities were doing. But looking at all these letters, and the last letter was Santa Barbara County Cattlemen's Association, which Tony Brancrino wrote, and then his last sentence was, "We believe that the existing policies, if followed, are sufficient to meet this objective, and the new proposed policies are unnecessary." Basically, we're doing everything that we were intended to do as LAFCO, and it works well for the city. One thing people have to remember is that in California, there's no such thing as affordable housing. You're not going to get it. Somebody's going to pay for it. We have had in Santa Maria a new project going up, and I believe it's 73 unit affordable housing that is costing $35 million to build, and it's for low income. So there is no such thing as affordable housing in the state of California because of the mandates that come down from the state and the prevailing wages of people that have to build it. There's no such thing. So we'll keep on going around this merry-go-round, but I'm glad that we got to this point of going through all of these months of deliberation and to come back to where we first started.
Okay. Let's do Commissioner Sevas. I can't get Commissioner out. Commissioner Sevas and Commissioner Hartman.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank especially staff for the work they did on this and keeping us focused on what our responsibilities are based on the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act. I also want to thank the ad hoc committee. We had great discussions 3 separate times, and everything's on the table. You got to remember where this started. We received a letter from EDC, and the request then was to just incorporate it. No discussion. They've done the research and incorporate it. Well, that's not a deliberative process. That's why we as a board decided to form an ad hoc committee so everybody had to be able to provide their opinions and let us review it. And we did that. And a lot of discussion. Not everybody got what they wanted to get because we came back to the very beginning of the discussion as Lori said, it worked. I've been on the commission now for a number of years. I've never seen where we've had an incident or a situation where it didn't work. So we saw no reason why to wordsmith the documents, our policy. Our policy is very clear, and it's all based on law. We cannot go beyond what the law dictates. So in the future, the act may be changed based on the governor's desire for more housing, but that's a discussion for tomorrow. And should it change, then we'll relook at our policies again to see how we have to respond to the act as how it's been changed. But we're not there yet. So I appreciate that we've established the process on how to address questions to the commission. And we did it, again, in a very deliberative process. We had many meetings. We received a lot of input. And the bottom line is, it works. Why change it? So I will be supporting the recommendation as the committee put forward, again unanimously. It was a lot of work coming to that. And so definitely I will be supporting that.
Isn't the committee's recommendation come with number 5, though, or not?
It did.
It did?
Yep.
Okay. So you're supporting that
Yes,
addition?
with 5.
Okay. Commissioner Hartman. Oh, and, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start. Well, I think on 5, it's a two-edged sword. I think on the one hand, it requires or says we should have a memorandum of agreement. On the other hand, it deals with conversion and not preservation. So I think I would support just deleting that. We don't really gain that much from it. But I'd like to say more broadly that I really do appreciate the work, the collaborative work that was done. I've never seen it in my time since 1998 as was demonstrated in the open process. Ultimately, I think we can say, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I think it could be a lot better, but I think it could be a lot worse, and this is kind of a compromise. I think what has happened, I mean, the act happened after the big war boom resettlement in California after 1950. And we had a lot of leapfrog development that was very inefficient. We lost a lot of agricultural land. It was very expensive to manage these cities. And so this came into being as a means of recognizing that California is the fruit and nut and vegetable capital of the world. We have a special role in agriculture here. And in the Central Coast, I mean, it is much of it prime agricultural land that feeds the country and fruits and vegetables for the whole world. So it's really sad to see some of these soils converted to homes. I think we've learned a few things since the 1950s, and that is that as you develop out, I know that the only thing people hate more than sprawl is density, but we have learned that density does in fact make it more efficient for cities. I believe I read something in the paper, whether it's true or not is another question, but that the fire chief in Lompoc said we can't provide good service if you expand out. To do police, their response times, water, sewer, all these services cost a lot of money. They also create a lot of greenhouse gases. And we have a lot of that now documented in these white papers that Lafco developed. So I think the impetus is to make the hard choice and say we got to do infill first. And the community where I live near, Buellton, has done a really model job of that. And we do have affordable housing, condos and rentals, and it's close to services where people shop and don't have to get into a car even to get groceries. So these are some of the reasons behind it. I think it's very important, but I think at this moment it's good enough.
Okay.
And I would prefer just to delete item 5.
Okay. Is that a motion? Do you care? That's not what you wanted to do. Okay.
I reserved the right, if you remember, to be swayed by deliberations, which I think is our job as a board member.
Yep. Okay. Well, it's all going to come down to a vote of this entire board anyway. So does anybody want to make a motion at this point? And explain to me why, again, before we vote, what's the importance of the addition of number 5? What does that do? So it allows the city and the county to come together and have an MOU. But Lafco still has to.
Absolutely, but each city has different priorities. We're not a one-stop shop for a cookie cutter thing.
I totally get that,
Yeah.
but I'm trying to figure out what that MOU would be able to. I mean, what did you guys have in your mind of what the MOU is going to say that Lafco is not going to have overview of?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
could I jump in?
Yeah.
Yes.
It was more of an explicit statement of a section in the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, Government Code Section 56425B.
Well, I knew that, but what is
which says prior to a city submitting an application to the commission to update its sphere of influence, representatives of the city and representatives from the county shall meet to discuss the new boundaries and reach an agreement on development standards, planning, and zoning requirements. I just wanted to, when I recommended that language, I just wanted to make it explicit in the ag and open space policies. And it really refers back, I got the language from that 56-425B in the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, which we would do anyway.
So it's going to be required anyway, but we're just explicitly stating in another section. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Well, Mr. Geyer, Commissioner Geyer had his light on first, then I can go to you.
Yeah, again, I view 1 through 6 as tools to
We still
achieve
can't find
policy
your
vi-
ghost 6 here.
Right here.
I think Commissioner Geyer.
C.
We're on A.
Okay.
A is the proposed one.
Recommended. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I think Mr. Geyer's references to the original staff recommendation that went to the ad hoc committee.
Right.
And the ad hoc committee didn't have a 6, but I think we're still.
Ad hoc
with the
got rid of
staff
6.
recommend-
Okay. So I appreciate that. That gives me peace of mind too, that it's already in there. It's just, you're just expressing it in another section. Okay. Commissioner Aceves.
I was going to make a motion. Let's start. Do you have something?
Well, Mr. Dillon has his light on too, and I always want to hear from this lawyer before that lawyer.
Please, by all means.
The one we're paying.
I've heard some support from at least 2 speakers to clean up that reference to prior with prime ag lands, and that's in section 5.3A.
Correct. I think
So,
that's a typo.
If that's in the motion, that would be a good thing.
Okay. Okay, before your motion, let's go to Commissioner Stark.
My sole thought is if the intent is to ensure that applicants track the statute, perhaps we should just incorporate the statute or say, shall negotiate something consistent with the correct statement and leave the extraneous interpretations out of it, but reinforce that we want them to come up with a MOU.
Okay. Commissioner Hartman.
Well, I think that's consistent with what our chair said earlier. Why introduce anything that can confuse, muddy, be interpreted differently? So I think that's what 5 might do.
But I changed my mind after I heard from our executive officer, so.
But we're not confused. It's just.
All right, so let's go to, do we need a light on down there? Commissioner Aceves.
Okay, I would move staff's recommendation based on the ad hoc recommendation with the one change, that one word change, and
prior submitted instead of prior out, prime in.
Yes, that's my motion.
Mr. Dillon?
Just for clarification, I believe you're referring to Exhibit A.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exhibit A.
Yeah.
I move Exhibit A with the one word change.
One change in 5.3. Thank you.
Okay, roll call. Oh, do we have comments on the?
Well, I just want to say I won't be supporting it because I think it's clearer without 5.
Okay.
And would urge somebody to join me.
Mr. Chair, Roger Welton, Santa Maria.
Yes.
I also want to support this and favor this. But I also want to thank the ad hoc committee for doing their due diligence and also staff. And I tell you what really resonated with me today was the passion that all the speakers shared. And so I appreciate them coming forward and putting in a lot of work. And I think this is really important for the future of Santa Barbara County. So thank you to all of them. And Lori, that was a wonderful comment about we've held the line for 25 years and intensify the core. I think that's one of our core principles. And then Janelle from Lompoc was very clear on each community is different. And so those differences come to us as a commission, and we will deal with them point by point, case by case. Thank you very much.
All right, so we have a motion. We had a second. Let's do a roll call, please.
Commissioner Seves.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen.
Aye.
Commissioner Guyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield.
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman.
No.
Commissioner Welt.
Aye.
Chair Lavanino.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Okay, we're not done yet. We are done with that item. So we're moving to business item number 2, which I know is what everybody's here is for. They're all here for item 2. Let's read item 2 in, please.
May I say something? I need to leave for another meeting. It's not that I'm mad.
No, I've only seen you mad once. It's okay.
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, business item number 2 is to receive and file a report on nominations to the Cal Lafco Board of Directors.
Okay, Mr. Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. We received a correspondence from Pamela Miller, Cal Lafco Executive Director, about vacancies and nominations to the Cal Lafco Board of Directors. And being in the coastal region, there are going to be vacancies for a city and a public member. So if anyone is interested, having served in those particular designations on the commission, we have until September 30th to submit the nominations. So you may want to think about it, or if somebody just wants to be nominated now, that would be fine. But we would have a meeting on September 5th if commissioners want to think it over.
Commissioner Seves.
Mr. Welt, what's the time commitment on that? And do you want to do it again?
Thank you. It's a lot of time, but I would like to encourage Etta Waterfield to think about stepping up to the plate. I think she would do a wonderful job representing the Santa Barbara County and the Central Coast as a city member. So Etta, I nominate you.
If nominated, I will not, what is it? And if elected, I will not serve.
What is the time constraint?
Yeah.
Roger, what was the time
there's
constraint?
a lot of, yeah, there can be, well, you and I can talk off the table here too as well, but there is a lot of time, and it depends on what your passion is. What I really appreciated about it was learning about the legislative process. I think that's real important in the work that we do. And so I got a lot out of being involved in those discussions. So it's very worthwhile. You meet 4 times a year, and I think you do a wonderful job.
And there, just for clarification, there is an election process that takes place at the Cal Lafco conference. So you could have a number of people that would be interested in the seat, and the voting members of each jurisdiction within the coastal region would cast that vote.
Oh, okay.
If you're interested.
Are you interested?
I never thought about it, but
Are you interested?
It's another level of education.
No, I'm not. No. I would support submitting your name, and then.
Unless you're interested.
Not at this point.
That's what. Guyer, you interested? No. Okay. I think that is okay, so I think Roger made the motion.
Member, public and city, so we have, those are the 2 vacancies.
So there's a city, and you want a second? Okay, Mr. Guyer wants a second Commissioner Waterfield's name. So should we do a vote on the city member?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
roll call it.
Commissioner Seves.
Aye.
Commissioner Allen. Aye. Commissioner Guyer.
Aye.
Commissioner Waterfield.
Aye.
Commissioner Hartman. Commissioner Welt.
Aye.
Chair Lavanino.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Congratulations.
Wow. That was the easiest election you ever won. All right, now we have public member. How's that work?
Same thing.
We pick the public member?
No, it's picked at the Cal Lafco
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
conference.
Okay.
This is a nomination, as Bill points out. Right.
Does anybody have any ideas?
So Roger and Shane.
I don't think Roger wants to do it again, right, Roger? Or do you?
No, but thank you for the opportunity, but I did my part.
I thought so. Shane, you interested?
I would disqualify myself on the grounds this involved multiple trips to Sacramento.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
All right, so seeing none. Okay. All right, so that takes care of that. So we go to informational item number 1.
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, informational item number 1 is to receive and file a report on Lafco file number 19-05, Santa Ynez Community Services District for an out-of-agency service agreement for the Zulik property located at 2501 Wannon Way, Solvang, California, 93463.
Mr. Chairman, this is an information item because the Santa Ynez CSD filed an application to annex or to provide an out-of-agency service agreement outside their boundaries. However, the Commission's Commissioner Handbook allows the chairman to sign the out-of-agency service agreement if there is a demonstrated public health and safety issue. And this property was determined by Environmental Health Services to be in need of a connection to a sewer system because of a failing septic tank. And they were actually asked to move out of their residence until such time as the district could provide services. So there was some urgency to this, and so we developed an out-of-agency service agreement that the chairman signed on July 1 that would allow them to connect immediately to the sewer, even though it's in Solvang's sphere of influence. It's in the Janet Acres area again. So this is for information. The action has already taken place.
Okay. Item number 2.
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, informational item number 2 is to receive and file a report on the special district commissioner election.
The continuing discussion of now, there's a runoff election between the 2 top vote getters for the regular special district representative on Lafco. Jay Freeman received 13 votes, and Judith Ishkanian received 11 votes. Jay received 43%. Judith received 36.7%. So there's again a mail ballot election. The ballots were sent out on June 2nd. 60-day period ends on August 5th, and we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully there'll be a majority vote, that we have a quorum of 20 districts that decide to vote, and that the second special district representative will be elected at that time. So that's just an information item for you.
Very cool. Item number 3.
Chair Lavanino and members of the commission, informational item number 3 is to receive and file a report on the Cal Lafco legislative report.
Yes, sir. Periodically, I provide updates on legislation that Cal Lafco is sponsoring. The AB 1822 is the omnibus bill that was signed on June 26. I've mentioned to you in the past that there's a bill, AB 1253, that would provide grant funding to Lafcos, and that did not make it out of the budget process. There was a $1.5 million request in the budget that did not make it into the budget. And there's AB 600 drinking water extensions that would circumvent Lafco process, is also just for your information. And that actually concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. That takes us to commissioner and staff announcements. Do the commissioners have any announcements that they would like to make?
Mr. Chair, I actually have a question of the executive director about the legislative thing.
That would be a good time to do it.
I just wanted to inquire if our legislative committee is tracking, I believe the bill number is SB 592, which is a gut and amend maneuver done by Senator Weiner, and it has to do with increasing the housing mandate, I guess, for lack of a shorthand, and it probably is going to have profound effects across the board, and maybe Lafco, maybe you ought to keep an eye on it if we're not already doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, we should track that bill and convene a legislative committee meeting to discuss it and talk about it.
Okay. Do you have any Commissioner Geiger?
Could you send a copy of that bill to each commissioner? Could you send a copy of the bill to the commissioners?
I'll send it out.
Okay. Executive officers' comments?
We have decided that, we should, unless something comes up that we don't know about, cancel the August 1st meeting and schedule our next meeting for September, is it 5th? September 5th? It's already scheduled.
Here or there?
Next meeting, it'd be here,
Okay.
September meeting.
Okay, so
That's it.
do we need to do a vote on that at all, or we're just going to do it? Well, Chair's discretion is that we go ahead and cancel August 1st. And so we will be adjourning to, it'll be a Thursday, September 5th, here in Santa Barbara is our next meeting. Jay, you win for being here the longest.